Hi everyone, Katie Miller here, your course lead for the Developer Relations Certification course with the Developer Marketing Alliance. I am here today to talk about the love between DevRel and DevMarketing with my former colleague and dare I say good friend, Aja Hammerly from Google. How are you doing today, Aja?
I'm good, and I'm glad to be here to talk about DevRel and DevMarketing working together.
Awesome. We had some fun doing some projects together, didn't we?
We definitely did.
And we learned some stuff. So I have a feeling that today we're gonna go through some of those good, bad, and ugly lessons, aren't we?
We're going to talk about some generalities so that people can apply it more easily to their work as they move forward on their DevRel or DevMarketing career.
Awesome. Very cool. So we're gonna get right to it with the spicy question is, as I was preparing this course, oftentimes I would see DevRel and DevMarketing used interchangeably. I saw all sorts of different organizational structures. So I'm just going to put it to you straight up. Is DevRel DevMarketing? Is DevMarketing DevRel? How do you think about the relationship between those two buckets of words, if you will?
Yeah, so I think really this is something I learned from you. I learned working with you. They're different sets of skills with compatible goals. DevRelers tend to, but not always, come up via the technical job ladders. They frequently have computer science degrees or engineering backgrounds, maybe product management backgrounds, designers. Design relations is a cool field. Dev marketing folks often do come from similar backgrounds. I've worked with multiple dev marketing folks with CS degrees. But their specialty tends to be more on the marketing side, understanding things like how to run campaigns, the different avenues available, how to handle budgets and ROI and tracking for marketing. And so we each have our separate skills, and when our powers combine, working together, we can achieve really amazing things. So I don't think they're the same thing, but I think that they are very complementary fields that work together a lot. It's just like a lot of things you require to do cool stuff on a lot of things. You require a team with a variety of skill sets, and this is no exception.
So thinking about that and thinking about organization, now this course is primarily for folks who are thinking about building up developer relations teams and programs, but oftentimes the question comes up as to whether or not where DevRel should sit and should dev marketing be part of that. And the reason I asked that question together is there are organizations that DevRel sits within marketing or vice versa. And so would really love your take on, if you could wave your magic wand organizationally, where things would sit.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the least satisfying answer ever, which is it depends. And that's my answer to a lot of technical questions too, for what it's worth. It's going to depend on your particular team. When you're building software, you need to look at the skills that your team has, the skills they can gain, and figure out what you're going to do to build something. Likewise, when you're working on building a go-to-market strategy or building a product strategy and working on product market fit, how people sit together is going to depend. So I've got friends in DevRel teams that sit under marketing that are incredibly successful. I work in a DevRel team that sits under product, and I would like to think we're incredibly successful. Toot my own horn a bit there. I'm really proud of the DevRel teams I've worked on over the years. And it's just going to depend on the culture of your organization, the particular individuals you have, the talents that they have, what makes the most sense. The only thing to watch out for is structures that don't let you work together. So like if you're in a company where, it's really hard to work cross-functionally, you're going to have to figure out how to solve that, because your work is way more impactful in DevRel if you work with dev marketing effectively.
And as someone who has sat both in DevRel and in dev marketing, I would say that that really goes both ways. And some of the biggest mistakes that I've made in my career is when I don't appreciate the, as you said, the importance of the different skills that you bring to the table with those shared goals in mind. And when I haven't fully respected that or had a curiosity around that is probably where I've made my biggest mistakes. And jumping right into that piece, we've talked in generalities about organization. We've talked in generalities around skills. Where have you found the most effective intersections to be between the functions?
So events is an obvious one. Frequently, event strategy is something that needs to be shared to be effective. Oftentimes, dev marketing teams own budget for things like events, or DevRel teams and dev marketing teams share that. It varies company to company. But I don't have all of the skills necessary to execute on an event. Maybe other DevRelers do, but personally, I do not. And so working with a dev marketing team that has those other skills, that understands things like, how we do, I don't know, there's lots of parts of events. That's helpful. The other thing that I found works really, really well is when we can align really clearly up front on goals. And, if we say, okay, our goal is to reach this particular audience, we want to reach them with, a drip campaign associated with this, this, and this, and we're going to need, X many pieces of tutorial content. We want at least 2 videos. We're working with, our research arm to do a white paper, or, the CEO wrote a white paper, however it works at your company. And we can plan all that up front. One of the best things we can do is we can basically cross-promote each other's work. Dev marketing can make sure that the DevRel work gets eyeballs and, is actually impactful, can help us track it. DevRel can help dev marketing make sure that campaigns for developers have the deep technical content that developers want, and also, has the type of materials that lead to developer behaviors that we're interested in. Maybe that's learning a new technology, or trying out a product, or signing up for a program. And so times when it works really well is when we talk early, talk often, and align on both our goals and how we're going to achieve them, leaning into each other's skill sets. And so I try really, really hard to learn as much as I can from my dev marketing friends. They've taught me a lot about marketing over the years. I did not show up in DevRel with any knowledge of any of this.
You weren't actively using the word drip campaign and
I was not actively using the word drip campaign. The first time I heard that, I had to be like, okay, guys, can you explain that to me? But you taught me a lot of this stuff, and I've learned it from a lot of other fantastic mentors in marketing over the years. And I've taught them about tech stuff. I've taught them about, what's challenging about adopting tech, what the steps of a tech adoption cycle might look like for a particular tech we're working on together. So my big tip for anyone working in either of these fields is build really strong relationships with your counterparts. Really strong relationships, trust-based relationships with your counterparts, so that you can have conversations about hard topics like goals in an honest, respectful, open way. And you can be really honest about where your skills lack, and they can be really honest about where they need your help. And there's going to be, safe, no judgment zone. So that's my tips for everyone.
We're gonna get into that, how to do the cross-functional relationship building. But there was something that you said in there that really sat with me, which was the content creation. So the campaign example was a really, really powerful one. And I definitely remember the friction sitting within DevRel and having that sense of, is marketing dictating how we make our decisions and what content we create and what we do with our jobs? And I'm curious how you think about that, or perhaps maybe I'm leading into the next question about cross-functional relationship. How does one go about getting that alignment on, say, content creation, so it doesn't create that feeling of, I'm only here to produce content for marketing?
Yeah. So much of this is how do you build any relationship at work? Everyone's going to find a thing that works for them and their personality. I do think that people interact differently because people are different. I can say that for me, one of the things I do is I try to be really open about, hi, here's the skills I have. Here's the resources that our team has available to us. It's going to depend, again, where you work. Different DevRel teams have different scopes of responsibility. Some teams don't do any work on early stage product feedback. They only do external stuff. Some teams barely do any external stuff. And I just try to show up really authentically and honestly. And, if someone's acting like I just exist to give them a list of blog posts, I'm like, hey, that's not working for me. Can we back the truck up a little bit and talk about how we can work together a little more collaboratively? But I do that anytime. I do that with all kinds of relationships. It isn't specific to dev marketing. If someone is behaving in a way that isn't working for me, I try to very politely bring it up. I also find that just Showing up with examples of your work is always helpful when building new relationships, whether those are internal, external, networking, etc. If you have things you're like, hey, here's some of the stuff we've done. Here's some of the stuff that I've personally done. It can help people understand the type of work you want to do and the types of things that they can get out of a relationship with you. So when I'm working with new folks, I often will show up with just a small portfolio of recent stuff that I want to do more of. Because people do better with examples than theory. Like, that's the reason we do sample code, right? People like to see stuff actually in practice rather than, the abstract theory of how a relationship could work.
I really like that. And I think that hits upon some of the other lessons in this course as well. I think the nod to Taylor Swift I gave was, we have impact. No, really, we do. And so, Tortured Poets fans out there, you're welcome. And I think that's a great example. While it's diverges a little bit from the DevRel Dev Marketing Love Fest we're having here, it is that sense of, we constantly need to justify and defend ourselves in DevRel in some ways, and to have that mentality of being prepared to give the examples, being prepared to show impact, to show what we do. I think helps in so many different ways, both in terms of building marketing relationships as well as building executive relationships.
Yeah, one of the things I say to DevRel is, because you're right, some DevRelers feel kind of like they're always on the defensive, is the DevRelers I work with, they know why they're doing the stuff they're doing. They're not just randomly throwing a dart at a board of activities. Like, DevRelers are smart, fantastic people, and they know why they're doing stuff. And I just like to remind folks, you made decisions to do this video series, write this blog post, attend this event for a good reason. Be willing to share those reasons. Be willing to talk about how you know it was a good use of your time. You wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't a good use of your time. So you already know those things. Just be willing to put them in writing or willing to speak them out loud when you're talking to others, so they understand why you're doing the stuff you're doing. DevRelers are logical, thoughtful, passionate people, like everyone in tech in many ways. And so I like to remind folks that our work is valuable and we have a way of doing it. We choose stuff for reasons, and we don't have to be forceful about it. We just need to be confident in our own work. Absolutely.
And with that, it makes me think of the concept of different love languages that people speak. And so I'm curious, and I'll share mine as well. But when you think about the broad language of love of DevRel, when folks are coming and they're like, we have this idea, or we need you to do this thing, what are some of the ways that a new cross-functional collaborator, a new developer marketer, like if you could orchestrate the perfect meet cute with a new dev marketer, how would you hope that they would communicate?
Yeah, I always get a little weirder on the love languages at work because touch is weird. But let's go with the second half of the question and focus on like how I would like people to show up, and also how I try to show up when I'm showing up representing my team. I like when folks show up with curiosity on both sides. When I meet with folks, I try to show up with curiosity. What are you thinking? How do you like to work together? When I have stuff I want to do with someone, I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, but I like to leave space open for them to, put their stamp on it, shape it a little bit more in a way that feels authentic and, acceptable to them. Maybe they know things about their management chain that I don't, and they have to, make some small changes or even big changes to the plan so that it works in alignment with the bigger picture of their management chain. That's fine. So I try to show up with an idea. I don't really like it when everyone comes to the table blank. I prefer that folks at least have some place to start. And I also prefer if they show up with some humility with that curiosity, so that if we don't end up using any of either of our ideas, we know that's okay. Like, we show up with ideas as a starting point for the conversation, not because we are, deeply attached to those ideas with our egos deep inside. Like, showing up confident in yourself but with low ego is really, really hard, but it is really, really helpful when doing these cross-ladder, cross-job role collaborations of all kinds. I also really like it when people explain why. So like, if I need help from dev marketing with something, I'm not just going to say, you need to do this for me. I won't do that to anyone. Doesn't matter if they're dev marketing or not. I'm going to say, hey, I need help with X. I think you're the one who can help me. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. And, they may come back with, okay, you're going about that all wrong. And I'm like, awesome, you taught me something today. Likewise, if they need something, I prefer that they show up with the context and our goals so that, if I think they might come to me wanting a specific type of content, and I'm going to be like, hey, I really don't think that's going to get you the numbers you want. I know what types of things tend to be most effective with the audiences that I reach. So again, and they may show up with one idea, and I like it if I can say, hey, I get why you're asking for that, but have you considered doing something else? So that's that whole showing up with curiosity and humility and giving us all a place to start from in that first couple meetings.
I appreciate that. And I curiosity, humility, empathy. And I think the only other one that I'd add is assuming best intent coming into the conversation. That even if that first interaction isn't super duper smooth, being able to take that step back and say, I'm wondering what drove the person to say and do these things.
Yep.
And in the end, it may have been that what we perceived was their intent, but at least taking that beat to say, were they really obfuscating? Were they really being obstinate? Or were they getting pressure from their manager to say and do a certain thing and were afraid to be vulnerable in that conversation? So there are a lot of different reasons that can happen, but coming at it from that place of empathy and best intent can be really helpful.
I like to think about it as just reminding myself, I work with smart people who behave in logical ways. So if, something is not making sense to me, I always try to assume that there is a piece of information that I currently do not have, because I work with smart people who behave in logical ways. That's been true at every job I have. And, then I can decide, do I need that piece of information to move forward? Sometimes I don't. It's fine to just let someone do it. Like, sometimes I'm like, that doesn't actually change how I'm going to engage here. But just reminding myself, I work with smart people who want everyone to be successful. They want our projects to be successful, and they're going to behave in ways that they believe support those goals. And I believe that about our customers as well. When I'm working with one-on-one with devs, they may ask me a question that doesn't on the surface make sense. I always take a step, take a deep breath, and try to understand why they're asking that question, because they are also smart people who are trying to achieve a goal and are behaving in logical ways based on their understanding of the situation.
Knowing that this course is the folks that are taking this course, some are developer relations professionals who are looking to grow into leadership and management roles. Others may be developer marketing experts or folks in adjacent fields who are looking to grow their scope of responsibility or pivot into a new field. So for somebody who is coming into the practice of developer relations in more of a management leadership capacity, what are some assumptions that you would warn them against, particularly for folks coming from the marketing side who think, I can just do this same thing in this new capacity? Just in our closing minutes, I have one more question after this, but for this one, just super quickly, what's a quick lesson that you'd say, just please don't do this?
So the big thing I always remind people is that DevRel is a very large field. There are a large pile of activities, different things that DevRelers do, some external, some internal, some online, some in person, that all are DevRel. And what your particular team and particular product needed to achieve your goals is going to be different than what, your buddy who also runs a DevRel team necessarily needs. So don't necessarily come into a new DevRel role assuming that a particular formula or your current understanding of DevRel is going to be the magic formula for your new project. I have to remind myself of that every time I take on a new DevRel project. Okay, take a step back. Of the giant pile of tools that DevRel and DevMarketing have, which ones are we going to apply to this situation? There are lots of ways to be successful in DevRel is the way I summarize that when I'm coaching people.
And I think that really weaves elegantly into some of the additional lessons that folks watching this will take, particularly because we often are under-resourced and really, really lean. And so we have to make really intentional choices. Okay, last question, I promise. I've asked all the other folks in the fireside chats, broadly speaking, where do you get professional inspiration from unusual places? Is there a fictional character, a book, a game that really inspires you that has influenced your management and leadership strategy?
So management, Ted Lasso. I'm sure other people have said that. Very good model of humility in management. But actually a lot of the stuff I thought about this question because you were kind enough to give me a heads up. A lot of the stuff I use on a day-to-day basis is actually skills I learned as a child in Girl Scouts. Selling cookies, planning events like campouts, coordinating groups of people who you didn't actually have any control over because they were also teenage girls. And, figuring out how making decisions about where do we want to sell our cookies? Do we want to sell them downtown? Do we want to sell them local to us? Is the cost of the bridge toll going to be made up for the amount of money we're going to make by selling them downtown? A lot of the skills I learned working a booth. I learned all of this stuff long ago in Girl Scouts, and I didn't realize how much I relied on that until I started figuring out, okay, well, where does this behavior come from? So I kind of went a slightly weird direction with that, but that's also on brand for me. And I think sometimes those early formative experiences where you first get to be a leader have a huge impact on how you lead later on in life, whether that's a sports team, a club, student council, etc.
I really like that. And if it is any reassurance, at a recent event that I emceed, I actually used tactics and best practices from my children's school when engaging with the audience. So I think that there's a lot that we learn in those formative years that we brush off when we're 8, 10, 12 years old. And then all of a sudden we're like, haha, that's why they did that thing with us.
Exactly. My teachers definitely had a lot of things that I did not appreciate in the moment that I have reached for as a manager.
Yeah. Aja, this was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom on the relationship of DevRel and Dev Marketing and DevRel leadership as a whole. Really, really grateful for your knowledge and for you.
And it's always lovely to talk about this. I really want more DevRel and Dev Marketing teams to build really strong collaborative relationships because I do believe we are more effective when we work together.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Thank you.